Welcome. So, I've been seeing a lot of discourse online about which cards could or should be game changers that aren't already. And even though I am personally for shorter ban lists, I've compiled a list of cards that are broken in a variety of ways, and I'll be weighing in on if I think they belong with the game changers. Today, I'll be doing colorless cards. Let's get started. So, first one here is Skull Clamp. We all know Skull Clamp, broken card advantage engine. I think a big thing that separates this for me from being a game changer is it's not like the entire engine in one package. Um, like it takes certain kind of decks or certain kinds of board states to really pop off. You don't just you know um, slam smothering dive and call it a day. It's very different than that. I do think it's really powerful, and can sometimes single-handedly like warp the game around it. But I'm gonna pretty firmly put this in should not be a game changer. Yeah, I think B tier is fine here. We'll move it up to A. Reasonable include, but not necessary. Busted card, but also certainly not like a staple for every single deck. Great in many different archetypes. All right, next is Lotus Petal. This one is quite unexciting. I mean, fast mana is broken. It is quite stapley sometimes. I'm just not sure it's game warping enough to really take a spot up on the lists. Um, I can't think of the last time I played a game and then a Lotus Petal came down and it suddenly was a worse experience. And I don't think it's necessarily too strong for bracket two. There are things you can do to keep this in a pretty reasonable power level. Obviously, the cards you cast with it matter more than the card itself. I'm going to put this pretty firmly and should not be a game changer. This one's going to B tier. Tanglewire. So, for anyone who does not understand how Tanglewire works, basically it's way more asymmetrical than it reads. Um, 3-drop artifact, fading 4. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player taps an untapped artifact, creature, or land they control for each fade counter on Tanglewire. Yeah, it looks like it should be just like a annoying stack piece, but really what ends up happening is you're stacking it in such a way so you're tapping less than your opponents, and then also you can tap Tanglewire as well. So you're like tapping even less. It's like you tap 4, I tap 2 situation. Um, Even though I love some stacks pieces, I'm actually going to put this. I'm quite confident. I think this should be a game changer. I've seen long-time players literally quit the game after some Tanglewire shenanigans, and I just don't think there should be any reason why that's hanging out in bracket 2 games. Like, pre-con players don't need to deal with that. Also, fading is just a wild mechanic. Mox Amber. So this is also ramp, very much like Lotus Petal, but it's a big asterisk. It's not like Chrome Mox or Mox Diamond where it's just good in every opening hand all the time. This takes some degree of fair play to really be a great card, and is also like weirdly like quite good in low color or low drop commanders, but it certainly falls off if you have like a 6 or 7 drop commander. Card is very powerful, of course, and in the decks that it's good in, it's usually kind of a staple. I don't think Mox Amber though is at the same level as like a Chrome Mox or Mox Diamond type card, so I'm gonna put that at reasonable include, but not necessary. So we're gonna set that at A tier. Urza's Saga. This is a complex one. It does a lot of things. It's a manaless tutor. It's fairly hard to interact with. It's very powerful. Can potentially be board presence. I think when you say it all like that, it sounds like it should be, especially considering it is colorless. And it can go in a heck of a lot of decks. My thing is it is quite telegraphed, and there are a healthy amount of decks that really don't need this or even want this. I'm gonna put this one in A tier as well. So like reasonable include, you know, if I woke up tomorrow and this was a game changer, I wouldn't exactly be shocked, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be there. Next is Krark Clan Ironworks. See, I think maybe I'm wrong here, but I see this more as like a synergy piece. It's quite powerful, but it also it's like certainly not in every deck. And it's been a while since I've ever seen it hit the battlefield. I'm gonna put this in D tier. I think it just shouldn't even be here. Again, good card. I'm not downplaying it, but I think you need to have enough moving pieces and existing synergies in your deck where it just seems like specific enough to not really warrant a place on the game changer list. Isochron Scepter is the next one. Can lead to repetitive play. Can be a combo piece. I think its fragility and its kind of like all in nature does keep it more in check. And you need to kind of be doing specific things with it to really make it miserable. And you're paying a fair cost for what you're doing. So, like 2 mana into an additional 2 mana, it's like that's not free. I'm going to put that firmly and should not be a game changer. Luckily, I haven't really seen a lot of folks suggest that one. Ulamog the Defiler. This has Annihilator X, where X is the great, what is it? X the number of +1/+1 counters on it, which is pretty crazy considering it generates a lot of those by itself. The Exile half library on cast trigger is also pretty insane. The ward is some craziness too. Being colorless means it definitely can show up in all sorts of decks without warning. Yeah, I'm actually gonna I love Eldrazi, but I'm actually going to put this in maybe should be a game changer. It is. It can really ruin someone's day. If Emrakul's Annihilator 6 is enough to keep Emrakul in the ban list, I think at the very least, Defiler should be a game changer. Of course, you don't get extra turns here, but neither here nor there. Next one is Blightsteel Colossus. You know it, you hate it, you love it. This one is quite good. I think the can't be reanimated clause, though, really separates it from things like Jingataxius. It is a miserable experience when it, shows up off like Satoru and kills one player. But usually when it's killing one player, it also, the other players aren't far behind. And even if they are, it's like an 11 mana, 12 mana? Yeah, 12 mana Colossus, is allowed to be good and also has to attack. It's not necessarily even an instant kill. Blockers are a thing by the point you have 12 mana, so yeah, very crazy. I would probably say, I'd say should not be a game changer. Very good card, just not quite there in my eyes. Mox Opal. I think this is likely the best fast mana we've gotten to so far. And it is a broken card. Of course, Metalcraft means it does take some degree of synergy. This is not, Mox Diamond. It's not just making 2 drops happen in turn 1. I'm gonna... I think reasonable include, but not necessary. It's a wild card, and it's probably stronger than Mox Amber most of the time. But it's not even really for every deck. It's a staple when it is in the archetypes, and it feels like a staple, but I think it's just more within reason than some other fast mana. Soul Ring. Goodness, I don't even want to get started in this. What hasn't been said about Soul Ring? Power level wise, should probably be game changer. But like the fact that it is an EDH icon, almost every precon has this in there, means it is probably fine for precon games. I'm going to actually just put that in. It shouldn't even be here. I don't even like discussing this one because it's just so embedded in the format. If you want to rule 0 Soul Ring out of your games, fine by me. But I think it's asking a lot for people to adjust 90% of their precons to keep them bracket 2. Gemstone Caverns is the next one here. Now, this is a super stapley card in the sense that, like, most decks are just better with a Gemstone Caverns in it. Pre-game actions are really sweaty. This one is kind of... it's funny because it's not like the card itself is super messed up. But it's like if you're playing a Gemstone Caverns, you more than likely are playing a really optimized deck or a reasonably optimized deck. You are going quite far out of your way to do some powerful and fast stuff. And pre-game actions just seem like a little intense for bracket 2 games. I'm actually going to put this in a reasonable include. Maybe even should just be a game changer. You know, I'll put it in S tier for now. I might change that later. So yeah, should be a game changer, I suppose. Being an every deck kind of card is, I think, troublesome. All right, next we have Emrakul, the Promised End. So cast trigger, gain control of someone else's turn, and then after that, they get an extra turn, and then also you have a built-in discount, which can make it cost quite a bit less. This is a really powerful card. I don't think it needs to be on the game changer lists. Yeah, I'm gonna put that in should not be a game changer. This is the kind of card that is only truly good when like lots of game has already happened. And having a big mana finisher creature that doesn't even necessarily kill people or completely end the game, I think it's fine. It can be miserable to be hit by the effect, especially as a cast trigger. It feels like there's so little you can do to fight it. But I mean, it's more than likely going to be hitting the player who's in pretty far in the lead. So I think if anything, it's kind of a comeback card. And who knows, maybe it's helpful versus those draw go counterspell heavy decks. So the next one here is Aether Flux Reservoir. Powerful. Everyone loves laser beams. I think this card is just a little bit too specific in the shells that it belongs in for me to really seriously think about it as a game changer. I think this is kind of like Clan Ironworks, although much better than that. But I think it's similar in the sense that like it takes it's not an every deck kind of card. It takes like certain situations to really make this pop off. And even when it does pop off, it's because you're doing like a lot of other things at once, and you've quite intended to it. You didn't accidentally stumble into an Aether Flux win. Metalworker. This is a pretty absurd card. Taps for 2 mana per colorless artifact you reveal from your hand. Or per artifact, even. Yeah, just artifacts. And like that is a lot of mana. I think this card is actually much more narrow than it reads. I do love Metalworker, and I have a lot of respect for it. It is a kill on sight mana dork. However, being 3 mana and also making you reveal cards, and also you need to have something to spend the mana on. Summoning Sickness is a huge problem with this. I think it's a very exciting card and a very cool card. And when it does work, it can be game warping. But I think when is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. I'm actually going to set this firmly and should not be a game changer. I think it's just there's so many more hoops to jump through to really make this card good, even though it reads really broken. It's just not like an every deck kind of staple. And if you already don't see it much, I don't really see the point of taking up space in the game changer list. Let's see what else we have. Next is Mindslaver. Very similar to Emrakul. up here. Um, it's like Emrakul, but like more telegraphed, although kind of more breakable in the sense that you can like recur it and whatnot. Um, I don't think it's so oppressive that it needs to be kept out of bracket 2 games. So I actually would also do the same thing as Emrakul here. I think it's firmly in B tier, should not be a game changer. Uh, I think it's almost reasonable to include, but if you're doing anything strong with this, you could have been doing strong stuff with kind of anything. By the time you're recurring 6 mana artifacts, I mean, bad things will happen for your opponents. Next is Ashnod's Altar. I kind of think of this a little bit like Clark Clan Ironworks again, where I think there's just not enough decks that really want to use an Ashnod's Altar. Like, it's very strong when it's going off. But you also need to be, like, reasonably fair to really make this good, while also having a mana payoff as well. So it really does not do the work for you. I'm going to put this in shouldn't even be here. Great card. Very scary card. You should probably remove it or counter it when you see it. But I don't think this is ruining pre-con games, even if it does show up. Next, we have Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. So, sometimes reminiscent of like Cradle or Serra Sanctum and just how much mana it makes. And like, it will be a lot. Also, being a land, it can be really tricky to interact with. And even if you have the ability to remove it, it oftentimes will be too late. I do think it scales well with the game. Like, it's not like I think it's closer to Serra Sanctum than Gaia's Cradle. Like, it's not like Gaia's Cradle is where it's just like tapping for 5 mana on turn 4 or something. This takes a little bit more dedication to make it work. It is staply. It is definitely the kind of card that can show up in more decks than you would imagine, but it's certainly not an every deck kind of card, and it takes some amount of fair play to get it going. So, like, you can't just token spam with it, really. So, yeah, I'm going to put this in should not be a game changer. It's good, but I think good isn't just reason enough to put it on that list. Sensei's Top is next. So the thing about Sensei's Top is it's a really annoying card in terms of it's hard to remove. It's the kind of card that you can kind of lose to without knowing you're losing to. It can be a little hard to evaluate as a new player as well. I think it actually has a reasonable amount of marks against it as like a precon card. And playing it in bracket 2 does feel a little bit like overkill. But also, I don't think it is oppressive enough to really warrant being a game changer. As busted as it is, I don't think anybody is playing a precon game and has it just ruined by Sensei's Top. I don't think that's really happening here. It's not like the One Ring where the whole game becomes about it. It's more just a really strong card. I'm gonna set this at reasonable include, but it really is barely there. I might I might adjust that. I'll actually say it should not be a game changer. Yeah, it's it's really strong. Um, but this is not like warping a whole game around it. And finally, for the colorless cards, we come to one more land. We have Maze of Ith. Maze is a really strong card, and it's also really hard to interact with when you are playing lower bracket games. And actually, I'm going to put this maybe in should be a game changer because it's just like it can kind of slow the game down like crazy. It's an insanely political card. It can make people just never attack you. This does like so much unseen work, and then is also super hard to interact with outside of like giving your thing hexproof. So yeah, I'll put Maze of Ith up here in terms of. I don't really think I could see myself playing this in a precon game and feeling like really good about it. It feels just like a little bit much. So yeah, these are the colorless cards and how I feel about them on this list. Um, Next up will be maybe white cards, and I'll be posting that video soon as well. Uh, Let me know if you disagree with any of these. I'm really interested. Anyway, have a good one.